Maria Thompson's hands were rough from years of scrubbing floors and wiping windows, but her mind was sharp as a tack. Every evening at 6 p.m., she would quietly enter the gleaming Riverside Corporate Center, pushing her cleaning cart while wearing her blue uniform with maintenance staff stitched across the pocket. Most employees barely glanced at her as they rushed past, carrying their designer briefcases and talking loudly on their phones. To them, she was invisible, just another member of the cleaning crew who appeared after hours to empty their trash bins and vacuum their plush carpets. What they didn't know was that Maria's day started long before she arrived at Riverside. At 4 a.m. each morning, she would wake up in her modest one-bedroom apartment, brew a strong cup of coffee, and study for 2 hours before heading to her first cleaning job at a local medical clinic. Between jobs, she attended night classes at City University, pursuing her MBA with a focus on business strategy and finance. Maria's journey hadn't been easy. Growing up in a working-class family in South Chicago, she had watched her mother clean houses and her father work double shifts at a factory to put food on the table. They had taught her the value of hard work, but also the importance of education. "Your mind is your greatest asset," her father would say, "and nobody can take that away from you." At Riverside, Maria observed everything while she worked. She listened to conversations about market trends while vacuuming outside conference rooms. She read discarded financial reports as she emptied trash bins. She studied the way successful executives carried themselves, spoke, and made decisions. Every bit of information was carefully stored away in her brilliant mind. The night cleaning shift suited her perfectly. After finishing her regular duties, she would find a quiet corner in the building to study. Sometimes, she'd sit in the empty cafeteria, spreadsheets and textbooks spread across a table, working on case studies until dawn. The security guards knew her well and would often bring her coffee, impressed by her dedication. One particular evening changed everything. Maria was cleaning the executive floor when she overheard a heated discussion about a potential company merger. Instead of hurrying past, she slowed down her work, absorbing every detail. The information helped her understand a key concept she was studying in her corporate strategy class, and she used it as the basis for her term paper, earning her first A+. That's when Maria realized her unique position. While others saw her as just a cleaning lady, she was getting a front-row seat to real-world business operations. She was learning things that couldn't be taught in any classroom: the informal networks, the power dynamics, the unwritten rules of corporate success. Despite working 2 jobs and studying, Maria never missed a class. She sat in the back row, still wearing her cleaning uniform, taking meticulous notes. Some of her classmates whispered and stared, but their judgment only fueled her determination. Her professors, however, quickly recognized her exceptional intelligence and analytical skills. Dr. Williams, her finance professor, once asked her to stay after class. "Maria," he said, "your analysis of market trends is outstanding. Have you considered a career in investment banking?" She smiled and replied, "I'm considering all possibilities, Professor. Right now, I'm learning everything I can about business, both in class and on the job." What she didn't tell them was that she had already started investing her modest savings, using the knowledge she gained from both her studies and her observations at Riverside. She lived frugally, saving every extra dollar and making careful, calculated investments. Month after month, year after year, Maria persisted. She maintained perfect grades while continuing to clean offices. She never complained about the long hours or the exhaustion. Instead, she saw every moment as an opportunity to learn and grow. The cleaning lady that everyone overlooked was slowly transforming herself. Behind her quiet demeanor and humble uniform, a brilliant business mind was developing. She understood market forces, corporate strategy, and financial analysis better than many of the executives whose offices she cleaned. As she neared the completion of her MBA, Maria had already formulated a clear vision for her future. But for now, she continued her routine, pushing her cleaning cart through the corridors of Riverside Corporate Center, invisible to most, but seeing and understanding everything. Little did anyone know that this seemingly ordinary cleaning lady was laying the groundwork for one of the most extraordinary business stories their company would ever witness. Maria Thompson was just getting started, and the best part of her story was yet to come. With her newly earned MBA tucked away in her small apartment, Maria Thompson continued her work as a cleaning lady at Riverside Corporate Center. But her modest cleaning cart now concealed more than just cleaning supplies. It held carefully organized folders containing investment research and market analysis. Maria's first major investment came from an unexpected source. While cleaning the executive floor one evening, she overheard a conversation about a small tech startup that Riverside had decided not to invest in. The executives had dismissed it as too risky, but Maria saw something they had missed. She invested half of her life savings, $5,000, in the company. Within 6 months, the startup's value tripled. This early success gave Maria the confidence to trust her instincts. She began investing systematically, using the unique insights she gained from cleaning offices across different departments. While executives discussed their strategies in boardrooms, Maria quietly collected information from discarded reports, overheard conversations, and industry magazines left in break rooms. Her cleaning job at Riverside became her greatest advantage. She noticed patterns that others missed. When the marketing department suddenly ordered large quantities of presentation materials, she knew a major campaign was coming. When the legal department started working late nights, she suspected corporate changes were brewing. These observations helped her make incredibly accurate investment decisions. Maria lived well below her means. Despite her growing wealth, she kept her tiny apartment and continued driving her old car. Every extra dollar went into her investment portfolio. The executive floor of Riverside Corporate Center buzzed with its usual evening activity as Maria Thompson quietly went about her cleaning duties. CEO James Preston and his inner circle were having one of their late-night meetings in the glass-walled conference room, the kind where expensive whiskey flowed freely and professional boundaries blurred. Maria could hear their loud laughter as she emptied trash bins nearby. She had grown used to their behavior over the years. The weeks following the conference room incident brought significant changes to Maria Thompson's nightly routine. While she continued her cleaning duties with the same quiet efficiency, her real work began after midnight when the building was almost empty. In the Human Resources Department, she discovered a disturbing pattern. While emptying the trash one night, she found shredded documents that, when carefully pieced together, revealed systematic discrimination in hiring practices. Qualified candidates with ethnic-sounding names were consistently passed over, their resumes marked with subtle codes that Preston's team had developed. The finance department proved even more revealing. Maria noticed that the department head, Frank Wilson, always stayed late on the last Thursday of each month. One night, while cleaning near his office, she overheard him having a heated phone conversation about adjusting the numbers before the board meeting. She began paying special attention to the documents that ended up in his trash and recycling bins. Maria's investigation wasn't limited to paper trails. She installed a small, legal voice recorder in her pocket, which captured the casual conversations and inappropriate comments made by executives who thought no one important was listening. The recordings included numerous instances of discrimination, harassment, and discussions of questionable business practices. The breakthrough came when Maria was cleaning the server room. The IT manager, Kevin Chen, was one of the few employees who had always treated the cleaning staff with respect. He often worked late and would chat with Maria while she cleaned. "You know," Kevin said one night, looking troubled, "I've been asked to do some strange things with the company's financial records lately. The numbers they want me to enter don't match our actual performance." Maria listened carefully as Kevin, thinking he was just talking to a sympathetic cleaning lady, explained how Preston's team had been manipulating data to mislead shareholders. She made mental notes of every detail, later cross-referencing them with her own financial analysis. In the legal department, Maria's attention was drawn to Thomas Rodriguez, the new head of legal who had seemed uncomfortable during the mockery session. She noticed him working late one night, looking stressed as he reviewed a stack of documents. When she entered to clean his office, he was muttering to himself about ethical violations. Unlike the other executives, he acknowledged her presence with a kind smile. "Sometimes," he said, seemingly talking to himself more than to her, "you see things that just aren't right, but speaking up could cost you everything." Maria noted his concerns and added his name to her mental list of potential allies. She knew that having a senior legal executive support would be crucial when the time came to act. The maintenance department provided another goldmine of information. Maria discovered maintenance requests that had been ignored, safety violations that had been covered up, and budget cuts that had put workers at risk. She photographed these documents with her phone, carefully building her case. During this time, Maria also began gathering information about Preston's personal misconduct. She found evidence of him charging personal expenses to the company, using corporate resources for private ventures, and making decisions that benefited his friends at the shareholders' expense. The security cameras became her allies in this investigation. As a cleaner, her presence in any part of the building at any hour never raised suspicion. She carefully noted which areas were under surveillance and which weren't, building a comprehensive map of the building's blind spots where questionable activities often took place. One night, while cleaning Preston's office, Maria discovered a hidden drawer in his desk containing documents about an offshore account. She carefully photographed everything before returning it exactly as she had found it. The evidence suggested that Preston had been embezzling company funds for years. As her investigation progressed, Maria began organizing her findings into categories: financial misconduct, workplace discrimination, safety violations, and personal corruption. She created encrypted digital copies of everything and stored them securely off-site. The cleaning lady that everyone ignored had become the most dangerous person in the building, not because she held a weapon, but because she held the truth. Every night, as she pushed her cleaning cart through the corridors, she was gathering the pieces of a puzzle that would soon bring down the corrupt empire Preston had built. What started as an investigation was becoming an ironclad case against the leadership that had forgotten the most important business lesson: never underestimate anyone, especially the person you think is just there to clean up your mess. Over the next 6 months, Maria Thompson transformed her modest basement apartment into a command center. The walls were covered with charts, photographs, and sticky notes, all carefully documenting every piece of evidence she had gathered from Riverside Corporate Center. Maria's neighbor, Mrs. Chen, an elderly retired judge, noticed the lights in her apartment staying on until dawn. One evening, she brought over some homemade soup and caught a glimpse of Maria's work. Instead of asking questions, Mrs. Chen simply said, "Whatever you're preparing for, dear, make sure everything is organized like you're presenting it in court." Taking this advice to heart, Maria created detailed files for each type of misconduct she had uncovered. The financial folder was the thickest, containing evidence of Preston's creative accounting. She had documented how he manipulated quarterly reports, hiding losses and inflating profits to keep shareholders happy while pocketing millions through clever schemes. The workplace discrimination file was equally damning. Maria had collected over 50 instances of qualified candidates being rejected based on their race or gender. She had recordings of Preston and his team making discriminatory comments, copies of edited hiring policies, and testimonies from employees who had been unfairly treated. Safety violations filled another folder. Maria had photographed broken equipment that management refused to replace, documented instances of workers being forced to operate in unsafe conditions, and collected maintenance requests that had been ignored to save money. The most sensitive documentation concerned Preston's personal misconduct. Maria had evidence of him using company funds for private vacations, billing personal expenses to corporate accounts, and making deals that benefited his friends at the shareholders' expense. One rainy night, while organizing her evidence, Maria received an unexpected text from Kevin, the IT manager. "Something big is happening. They're deleting files from the servers. Lots of files." Maria immediately began backing up her digital evidence to multiple secure locations. The next day, she noticed unusual activity in the legal department. Thomas Rodriguez was working late again, looking more troubled than ever. As Maria cleaned his office, she saw him placing documents in a secure file marked Executive Misconduct Investigation. Maria knew she needed more than just evidence. She needed allies. She carefully identified employees at all levels who had shown integrity and kept notes on potential witnesses: the security guards who had watched her study for years, the HR assistant who had quietly objected to discriminatory practices, and even some mid-level managers who had expressed concerns about Preston's leadership. She also began preparing documentation for the board members. Each director received an anonymous letter containing just enough information to raise serious questions about Preston's leadership, but not enough to reveal her full hand. To protect herself, Maria created multiple copies of everything. Some were stored in a safety deposit box, others with her lawyer, and digital copies were secured in encrypted cloud storage. She knew Preston would try to discredit her once she revealed herself, so every piece of evidence needed to be bulletproof. The most challenging part was documenting the paper trail of her share ownership. Maria had purposely kept her stock purchases quiet, using various legal entities and investment vehicles. Now she needed to organize this information to prove her majority stakeholder status while explaining the legitimate source of her wealth. One evening, as Maria finished creating her final documentation portfolio, she heard Preston and his team in the conference room again, laughing about firing some maintenance staff to cut costs. She recorded their conversation, adding it to her evidence file, knowing it would be one of the last recordings she would need to make. 6 months of meticulous documentation had given Maria everything she needed. Her evidence was organized, verified, and ready to be presented. The cleaning lady who had been invisible for so long had documented every dirty secret the company had tried to hide. As she closed the final folder, Maria looked at the small photo of her parents on her desk. Her father had always said, "Success leaves clues, but so does corruption. You just have to be patient enough to find them." She had found them all, documented them thoroughly, and now it was time to use them. The next board meeting was scheduled for Monday morning. Maria checked her presentation one last time, straightened her cleaning uniform, and smiled. Soon, every piece of evidence she had gathered would tell its story, and the executives who had mocked her would finally learn who had been cleaning up after their mistakes. The morning of the board meeting dawned bright and clear. Maria Thompson arrived at Riverside Corporate Center early, not with her usual cleaning cart, but carrying an expensive leather briefcase. In the lobby, security guard Mike did a double take before breaking into a knowing smile. "Good luck today, Maria," he whispered as she walked past. She had trusted him with her secret the night before, knowing she'd need allies throughout the building. The executive floor was buzzing with activity. Board members were arriving from across the country for what they thought would be a routine quarterly meeting. CEO James Preston stood near the conference room door, confidently greeting each arrival with his practiced smile. Maria waited in a small office adjacent to the boardroom, reviewing her documents one final time. Through the wall, she could hear Preston beginning his presentation, his voice full of its usual arrogance as he discussed the company's outstanding performance under his leadership. "As you can see from these numbers," Preston's voice carried through, "our profit margins have increased by 30%. Maria checked her watch. She had timed this perfectly. Her lawyer, Patricia Rodriguez, texted her, "We're in position. Legal team ready." Down in the lobby, more lawyers and financial experts were arriving, waiting for her signal. Inside the boardroom, Preston was reaching the climax of his presentation. "And so, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'm pleased to announce that this quarter has been our most successful." That was her cue. Maria stood up, straightened her jacket, and walked to the boardroom door. The secretary tried to stop her, but Maria simply handed her a document. The woman's eyes widened as she read it, and she stepped aside. Maria pushed open the heavy wooden doors. 20 heads turned to stare at her. Preston stopped mid-sentence, his face showing confusion before recognition slowly dawned. "I apologize for interrupting," Maria said, her voice clear and confident, "but I believe the board should see the real numbers before making any decisions today." "Security," Preston shouted, "remove this cleaning lady immediately." "I don't think so, Mr. Preston," Maria replied, placing her briefcase on the table. "As the majority shareholder of Riverside Enterprises, I have every right to be here." The room erupted in confused murmurs. An elderly board member adjusted his glasses. Did she say majority shareholder? Maria opened her briefcase and began distributing documents. "My name is Maria Thompson. I own 46% of this company's shares, and I have evidence of systematic fraud, discrimination, and criminal misconduct by the current management." Preston's face had turned pale. "This is ridiculous. She's lying." The board chairman, Dr. Sarah Williams, was already reading through the documents. Her expression grew more serious with each page. "These allegations are very serious, Ms. Thompson, and these documents appear to be genuine." "They are," Maria confirmed. "For the past 6 years, I've worked as a member of the cleaning staff here while completing my MBA and building my investment portfolio. During that time, I've witnessed and documented numerous violations of corporate policy, federal law, and shareholder trust." She pressed a button on her phone, and her team of lawyers and financial experts entered the room. The board members watched in stunned silence as these professionals began setting up their presentation materials. "While Mr. Preston has been showing you manipulated numbers, Maria continued. The real financial statements tell a very different story, and that's just the beginning. Preston tried to interrupt, but the board chairman silenced him with a raised hand. Please continue, Ms. Thompson. For the next hour, Maria methodically presented her evidence. She showed proof of financial manipulation, discriminatory practices, and personal misconduct. The board members listened intently, their expressions growing more concerned with each revelation. Furthermore, Maria said, gesturing to Thomas Rodriguez, who had just entered the room, your own head of legal has been documenting similar concerns. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like to share your findings? Preston, now sweating visibly, tried one last time to regain control. This is all a misunderstanding. No, Mr. Preston, Maria interrupted, her voice firm but calm. The only misunderstanding was believing you could continue this behavior indefinitely. The cleaning staff you mocked and belittled watched you destroy this company's values. Now, we're going to restore them. The board chairman stood up, her decision clear in her eyes. The cleaning lady they had ignored for years was about to change everything, and there was nothing Preston could do to stop her. The most powerful person in the room had been hiding in plain sight all along, and now it was time for justice to be cleaned up. The boardroom fell into a stunned silence as Maria Thompson continued her presentation. The woman they had known as the quiet cleaning lady was now commanding the room with the confidence of a seasoned executive. Preston slumped in his chair, his usual arrogance replaced by visible fear. Board members leaned forward, examining the documents Maria had distributed. The evidence was undeniable. For the past 6 years, Maria had explained, I've watched this company's culture deteriorate under Mr. Preston's leadership. While cleaning these offices at night, I witnessed systematic discrimination, financial fraud, and abuse of power. She played selected recordings from her documentation. The board members listened in horror to Preston's voice making discriminatory comments and discussing illegal business practices. Several board members shook their heads in disgust. But how did you acquire so many shares without anyone noticing? Asked one board member, still struggling to process the revelation. Maria smiled and gestured to her financial team. I started investing my savings in Riverside stock when I noticed the company was undervalued. Through careful portfolio management and strategic purchases, I gradually became the largest individual shareholder. Every cleaning shift provided me with unique insights into the company's true operations. She projected her investment records on the screen, showing the legitimate trail of her stock acquisitions. The board's financial experts examined the documents, confirming their authenticity. While Mr. Preston was mocking the cleaning staff, Maria continued, I was completing my MBA with honors and building an investment empire. The very position he ridiculed gave me unprecedented access to observe his misconduct. Thomas Rodriguez, the head of legal, stepped forward. Everything Ms. Thompson has presented aligns with concerns our legal department has been documenting. We have independent verification of all these allegations. Preston finally found his voice. This is absurd. You can't seriously be listening to a cleaning lady. That cleaning lady, the board chairman interrupted, appears to be both our majority shareholder and the only person in this room who's been telling us the truth. Maria opened another file on her laptop. I'd like to show you the real impact of Mr. Preston's leadership on our employees. She displayed testimonials from workers who had faced discrimination, charts showing the decline in employee satisfaction, and documentation of ignored safety concerns. The room grew tenser as Maria revealed more evidence. Security camera footage showed Preston engaging in inappropriate behavior. Email trails exposed his schemes to manipulate stock prices. Financial records revealed his misuse of company funds. Perhaps most disturbing, Maria said, pulling out her final piece of evidence, is this documentation of systematic discrimination in hiring practices. Mr. Preston created a coded system to reject qualified candidates based on their race, gender, or ethnic background. Several board members gasped. One elderly director removed his glasses, wiping them nervously. This is beyond unacceptable, he muttered. Kevin, the IT manager, was called into the boardroom. He confirmed how Preston had ordered him to alter digital records and delete incriminating files. Ms. Thompson was the only one who saw what was really happening, he testified. The board chairman stood up. Miss Thompson, your evidence is comprehensive and deeply troubling. But what I find most remarkable is not just the misconduct you've uncovered, but the professional way you've documented and presented it. Maria nodded graciously. I learned business ethics and corporate governance in my MBA program, but I learned integrity from my parents, who taught me that true leadership is about responsibility, not power. The revelation was complete. The cleaning lady they had mocked was now revealed as a brilliant businesswoman who had outmaneuvered them all. She had turned her invisible position into her greatest strength, using it to observe and document everything they thought nobody would ever discover. Preston, now pale and sweating, tried one last desperate attempt. The shareholders will never accept this. Maria smiled. Mr. Preston, I am the shareholders, and I have proxy agreements from other major stakeholders who support my actions. Your time of deceiving this board is over. The board chairman looked around the room, seeing nodding heads and determined expressions. The cleaning lady had not only exposed the truth, she had earned their respect and trust in the process. The revelation was complete, but its consequences were just beginning. As Maria closed her presentation, everyone in the room knew that Riverside Enterprises would never be the same. The invisible woman had stepped into the light, and her truth could no longer be ignored. The board chairman's voice cut through the tense silence of the conference room. Mr. Preston, in light of the evidence presented by Ms. Thompson, I am calling for an immediate vote on your termination as CEO of Riverside Enterprises. Preston jumped to his feet, his face red with anger. You can't do this. I built this company. James Preston, the man who had mockingly imitated a cleaning lady just weeks before, was now being escorted from the building by security. As he passed Maria, she simply nodded, maintaining her professional composure even in victory. The board immediately appointed Maria as interim CEO. Her first action was to call a company-wide meeting in the main auditorium. Employees from all departments gathered, wondering what was happening as Maria took the stage. Many of you know me as the woman who cleaned your offices at night, she began. Today, I stand before you as your new CEO, but more importantly, as someone who has worked alongside you and seen both your struggles and your potential. The audience sat in stunned silence as Maria outlined her plans for transforming Riverside. She announced immediate changes: a comprehensive review of all salaries to ensure equal pay, the establishment of an employee advocacy board, and a new corporate ethics policy. Starting today, she declared, every voice at Riverside will be heard, every contribution will be valued, and every employee will be treated with dignity. She implemented a series of rapid changes. The discriminatory hiring practices were eliminated immediately. Employees who had been unfairly passed over for promotions were given new opportunities. The maintenance and cleaning staff received significant raises and improved benefits. Maria's next move surprised everyone. She converted a portion of her shares into an employee stock ownership program, giving workers a direct stake in the company's success. When I was cleaning these offices, she explained, I saw how hard everyone worked. Now you'll share in the rewards of that work. The corporate culture began to transform. The executive floor, once an exclusive domain, was open to all employees. Maria moved her office to a central location where anyone could reach her. She regularly joined the cleaning staff on their rounds, reminding herself and others that no job was beneath anyone. Thomas Rodriguez, who had supported her revelation, was promoted to Chief Ethics Officer. Kevin Fermit became the head of a new technology transparency initiative. Even Mrs. Chen, Maria's retired judge neighbor, was invited to serve on a newly formed advisory board focusing on workplace equality. The media caught wind of the story, and it spread rapidly. The cleaning lady CEO became a symbol of justice and transformation in corporate America. Business schools began using her story as a case study in ethical leadership and corporate governance. But Maria's favorite change was the simplest one. She converted the executive dining room into a communal space where employees from all levels could eat together. Real change, she often said, happens one conversation at a time. 6 months after the reckoning, Riverside's performance had improved dramatically. Employee satisfaction reached record highs. The company's ethical business practices attracted new clients and investors. The stock price, now reflecting honest numbers, showed steady, sustainable growth. Preston's attempts to challenge his termination failed in court, faced with the mountain of evidence Maria had gathered. Many of his former executive team members faced legal consequences for their roles in the misconduct. 1 year after taking over, Maria stood in front of the company again. This time, she announced record profits, but more importantly, record employee happiness scores. The company had become a model of ethical business practices and workplace equality. Success, she told her employees, isn't about power or position. It's about integrity, hard work, and treating everyone with respect. Sometimes the person pushing the cleaning cart understands this better than the person sitting in the corner office. The story of the cleaning lady who became CEO became legendary in business circles, but Maria never forgot her roots. She kept her old cleaning uniform framed in her office, a reminder of where she came from and how she got there. Every night, as she left the office, she would stop to chat with the cleaning staff, remembering her own days of pushing a cart through these halls. Under her leadership, Riverside became known not just for its business success, but for its treatment of every employee, from the CEO to the newest cleaning person. The reckoning had come, justice had been served, and Riverside Enterprises had been transformed. The cleaning lady who had been invisible for so long had cleaned up more than just offices. She had cleaned up corporate corruption and built something better in its place.